For over a century, business thinking has worshipped at the altar of five sacred paradigms: dominate the competition, grow endlessly, optimize everything, obsess over customers, and raise more capital to win. But what if these once golden rules are now the very chains holding businesses back? Introducing S.P.A.R.E, the evolution pentagon, a radically bold business model built not on outdated doctrines, but on truths forged in today's chaotic, creative, and constraint driven world. S.P.A.R.E is not just a framework, it is an strategic awakening. It flips the script on what it means to grow, to lead, to innovate, and to matter. Because in an era of too much noise and not enough soul, the future belongs to those who know what to spare. We were all taught the same game: dominate the board, corner your rival, protect your king at all costs. Business, like chess, was a war of minds. Strategy was everything. The goal was competitive advantage. But what if I told you that strategy has become a trap? In 1985, Michael Porter gave us the holy grail of business, the competitive strategy. He told us about cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. It was clean, elegant, and for the time, it worked. Companies that followed the framework thrived. Think Walmart, think GE, think Coca-Cola. But today, the competitive advantage has become like carrying a map in a world that has moved to GPS. Let me show you why. Let's begin with a story you think you know, Kodak. In 1996, Kodak has a $28 billion market cap. It owns 80% of the global photo market. That is called dominance. That is the competitive advantage. But in 2012, Kodak filed bankruptcy. How? Here is the twist. Kodak actually invented digital camera in 1975. Yes, they had future in their hands, but their competitive advantage, films and chemicals, have blinded them. Protecting the advantage, they ignored the new game. They didn't pivot, they defended. And defense in today's world is death. Let's look at data. In 1960, the average lifespan of S&P 500 company was 60 years. Today, less than 18 years. That's not a trend. That is a revolution. Every year, 52% of Fortune 500 companies are replaced or disrupted. Why? Because the competitive advantage assumes the game stays the same. But we are living in a world where the board flips every quarter. Think like this. If you are building a sandcastle while the tide is rising, it doesn't matter how tall your walls are. Warren Buffett used to say, invest in business with wide moats. But in 2025, moats don't protect you, they isolate you. Let's compare two tech giants, BlackBerry and WhatsApp. BlackBerry tried to lock users in proprietary email, secured networks, a moat. WhatsApp, it said, let's connect everyone, make it free, make it simple, make it viral. BlackBerry is gone. WhatsApp sold for $19 billion. The new advantage is not owing users, it is empowering them. Hotels had competitive advantage, brand, loyalty programs, real estate. But Airbnb had something else, no properties. How do you beat a giant having nothing? You decentralize it, invite others to play, you turn customers into partners. Airbnb isn't a business, it is an ecosystem. Hotels fought for bookings, Airbnb unlocked abundance. And that's the key shift from fighting for market share to creating a market space. In 2022, Edelman's Trust Barometer found 86% of consumers expect brands to take a stand on social issues. Advantage today? It isn't price, it is principle. Patagonia gave its company to a trust to fight climate change. Revenues surged. Tesla didn't advertise, it stood for something. Purpose scales faster than product. Think of Google. It made Android an open source. It let the world build on its platform. Microsoft once fought for open source like a virus. Then in 2018, it bought GitHub, the heart of open development. Today it is one of the biggest cloud companies. When you share the stage, more people will come to the show. Control feels safe, but in fast-moving environment, control becomes a bottleneck. Compare Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster controlled inventory, late fees, physical stores. Netflix, it gave users freedom, no late fees, streamlining, personalization, and then it did something unthinkable. It began producing its own shows. Netflix disrupted itself. Why? Because in a world where everyone is sprinting, standing still is same as falling behind. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, DAOs, Web3. What do they have in common? They shifted the power from center to the edge. Decision making is becoming collective. Knowledge is decentralized. Influence is democratized. The smartest company is not the one with the smartest people. It is the one which taps into the collective intelligence. So if competitive advantage is dead, what replaces it? Let me give you 5 new rules. Speed is better than strategy. Move fast, learn faster. Connection is better than control. Build networks, not silos. Purpose is better than product. Stand for something meaningful. Collaboration is better than competition. Grow the pie instead of fighting for the crumbs. Flexibility is better than fortress. Reinvent before you are forced to. A caterpillar survives by protection. It crawls, it hides, it eats leaves, but it can never fly. To transform, it must dissolve literally into goo inside chrysalis and then emerge as a butterfly. Most companies today are caterpillars clinging to their old leaves, but the future belongs to the ones brave enough to dissolve, to let go what made them successful yesterday and embrace the chaos of becoming. Competitive advantage was a great story, but it was a story for a different time. Today, the game has changed, the board has changed, and even the players have changed. And the only question that matters now is, are you still playing to win, or are you building something worth joining? In nature, collapse is not always catastrophic. Sometimes it is the beginning. We live in a world obsessed with more revenue, more customers, more market share, more features, more growth. But what if I told you that more is not always better? What if I told you that in business world, some of the greatest breakthroughs have come not through expansion, but through subtraction? Welcome to the myth of exponential growth. Imagine this. A man makes bikes. Not just any bikes, bamboo bikes. In 2008, Craig Calfee ran a sprawling custom bicycle business with over 28 product lines. Custom fiber frames, tandems, electric hybrids, each a feat of engineering. Then the economy collapsed. Orders plummeted 43% in one quarter. In desperation, Craig did something radical. He cut and cut and cut again. 82% of his catalog gone. Half of his staff let go. He focused on what he did best, handmade bamboo cycle frames. And here is the twist. His business not only survived, but it thrived. Revenues soared, profit margins tripled, and the company reached to new creative heights. That, my friends, is not supposed to happen, but it did. In 1960, the average company on S.P.A.R.E 500 lasted 60 years. Today, 18 years. What happened? Our obsession with scale happened. Here is what they don't tell you. 65% of high growth startups either collapse or get acquired at a loss or fade into irrelevance. According to Kaufman Foundation, scaling too fast is the number one cause of startup failures. Not bad luck, not lack of funding, not even a bad product. Too much, too fast. Let's step away from boardrooms into forests. Ecologist C.S. Howling discovered something stunning. Resilient ecosystems don't grow endlessly. They grow, they conserve, they release, they reorganize.
When a tree falls, it makes a space. Sunlight hits the forest floor. A new life begins. It is not decline, it is a design. Nature doesn't fear collapse, it uses it. Why don't we? Adria ran the best restaurant in the world, El Bulli, 5 times world champion, 2 million reservation requests for just 8,000 seats, and then he closes it at its peak. He said, we needed to stop to continue. He turned Ali Bulli into a foundation, a playground for culinary innovation. And what happened? They created more dishes and techniques in 3 years after closing than in previous 10 years. Success is stifling innovation, and only subtraction could free it. Adobe once sold Creative Suite for $2,500 a pop, and then it killed its cash cow. They moved to a $50 per month subscription. Wall Street panicked. Adobe's stock fell by 34%. But within 7 years, revenue tripled, subscribers soared, innovation rate increased by 440%. How? By eliminating 40% of unused features, by shortening the development cycle from 18 months to weeks. They didn't grow by doing more, they grew by doing less better. Every product, every feature, every acquisition looks like an asset, but more often they are liabilities. More choices means more dependencies. More systems means more fragility. Eventually no one understands the whole picture, and then it breaks. Herb Keller of Southwest Airlines said no, no first class, no meals, no big airports. And those no's built a $23 billion airline with the fastest turnaround time in the entire industry. Nuclear Steel had 3 management layers. US Steel had 12. In 2020, Nuclear made more steel with fewer people at 4 times the margin. Subtraction isn't a loss, it is a leverage. Steve Jobs, 1997, Apple is 90 days from bankruptcy. He kills 70% products, fires thousands. He focuses on just 4 things, and Apple becomes the most valuable company in the history. Crisis clear clutters. It grants permission to reset. But what if you didn't wait for a crisis? Toyota imposed fake constraints. Build the same car, half the tool, half the space, half the time. Impossible? They did it. Canon eliminated components to force innovation. GitHub deleted 30% of its code. Development time dropped by 87%. Crashes dropped by 75%. Constraints do not stifle, they ignite. 140 characters, weak adhesive, 128 kilobytes of RAM. Twitter, Post-it notes, Macintosh. Constraints didn't block brilliance, they created it. Nintendo Wii, underpowered, underwhelming, outsold everyone. Why? Less tech, more fun, less can be more, and more can be mess. We like to add, we reward more, and subtraction, it feels like a failure even when it is the smartest move. Behavioral economists call it loss aversion. We fear letting go more than we fear collapse. But there is a hope. Some companies build the discipline of subtraction. Procter and Gamble has a rule of one in and one out. Google has zero time projects. Build it with no new resources. Hire split into 2,000 micro-enterprises. Subtraction is not occasional, it is institutional. What if success is not more? What if it is less? Less waste, less noise, less clutter. What if it is deeper, not wider? What if future belongs not to those who grow most, but to those who reduce with greatest clarity? In the forest, the mighty fall to make the way for new life. But in business, we fall in love with expansion. But perhaps the greatest act of growth is to know when to let go.
Efficiency, the golden standard of business, the holy grail of operations, the idol of every MBA program. But what if I told you that this very pursuit, the obsession with optimization, is quietly suffocating the thing which we need most in today's world: innovation? Welcome to the end of efficiency. Let's begin with something counterintuitive. In 1960, NASA engineers preparing for the moon landing have deliberately designed Apollo guidance computer with redundant systems, backup circuits, fail-safe slack. Why? Because space is unpredictable, and in unpredictable environments, redundancy is not a waste, it is a wisdom. Today, businesses are designed for predictability, efficiency, zero slack, but we are no longer working in a predictable world. In complexity, efficiency becomes fragility. Toyota gave the world lean manufacturing, just in time delivery, Kanban boards, Kaizen, and yet what is less known that how Toyota also builds intentional slacks into its systems. Workers are empowered to stop production lines. Engineers are encouraged to tinker. Time is allocated for process reinvention, not output. Toyota is not efficient, it is intelligently inefficient. Lean was never about doing more with less, it was about doing better with room to breathe. But that nuance was lost in translation. And what businesses adopted wasn't lean thinking, it was lean squeezing. In 1997, the Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas, and with it came the wave of Six Sigma disciples. The mission to cut cost, optimize processes, to maximize shareholder value. The result, engineering culture was replaced by spreadsheets. Safety teams were overruled by finance. Then came 737 crashes. Investigations revealed software shortcuts, cost driven compromises, rushed testings. Boeing has become too efficient to be safe, too optimized to innovate, too lean to learn. In 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed in part because of value at risk models, highly efficient tools to managing financial exposure. But these models were built for yesterday's data, not for today's chaos. When unpredictable struck, systems cracked, the models failed, billions vanished. Why? Because efficiency systems assume stability, but innovation and disruption are inherently unstable. The tighter we build systems, the less we leave room for the unknown, the less adaptable we become. At SpaceX, they crash rockets on purpose. They launch prototypes, not when they are perfect, but when they are good enough to break. Each crash is a data mine. Each explosion is a leap forward. Traditional aerospace firms built on safety and efficiency take years to launch one iteration. SpaceX has launched more rockets in 5 years than some of their competitors did in 50 years. Why? Because they build for learning, not for perfection. And learning requires mess, chaos, inefficiency. In 2004, Google gave engineers 20% of time to work on passion projects. Gmail, Google Maps, AdSense, all born from that intentional inefficiency. 20% of time and 80% of companies' most valuable innovations. And yet, by 2013, Google quietly scaled it back. Why? Because it didn't neatly fit into their OKRs. It is hard to measure, too inefficient. Google didn't stop innovation, but something changed. The culture narrowed, the risk appetite declined. The cost of optimization is not just agility, it is wonder. Since Frederick Taylor's scientific management in early 1900, we have viewed organizations as machines. Input, process, output. Any inefficiency, remove it. But here's the problem, that humans are not cogs. We get distracted, we play, we experiment, and we fail. And in that failure, we discover. All great inventions often begin as mistakes. Microwave, penicillin, post it notes, all are born from imperfection. If your culture punishes deviation, then you eliminate the conditions for discovery. In complexity theory, the systems survive not by efficiency but by optionality, the ability to pivot, adapt, and absorb shocks. A rainforest doesn't optimize, it overproduces. Redundancy is resilience. Netflix doesn't optimize for perfect content. It experiments relentlessly. They spend billions producing the shows they know will fail, but the hits justify the waste. Amazon runs hundreds of A/B testing daily. Most fail, but a few shapes entire industries. Efficiency tries to minimize failure, but innovation requires it. And here is the scary part. The more efficient an organization becomes, the more fragile it gets. The less time it has to reflect, the fewer experiments it runs, the more it cuts slack, the less it can respond to surprise. Until one day the surprise comes and there is no cushion left to absorb it. Psychologists have found that unstructured time boosts creative thinking by 60%. Companies with slack budget report 3 times more innovation than those with tight margins. Children learn not through structured instructions, but through play. What if companies also follow the same thing? Slack is not the enemy of productivity, it is the playground of possibility. Pixar has a rule: every movie starts ugly. They call it ugly baby stage. It is messy, disjointed, and inefficient, but they protect it and nurture it. Why? Because they know that premature optimization kills creativity. You cannot edit what has not been explored. So, what if we stop measuring success by output per input? What if we measure number of experiments per quarter, number of lessons learned per failure, optionality created? What if our dashboards tracked not just cost savings but curiosity flows? The future is not efficient, it is volatile, it is fast, it is uncertain. To thrive, we must design organizations like in living organisms, not machines. That means building in slack times, safe to fail experiments, redundant skills, cross functional teams, creative chaos. The best systems do not collapse when stretched, they learn. Efficiency is easy to measure, but value, it is harder. A true success may look like a project that fails but teaches, a team that pauses to reflect, a leader who says, let's try it and see, not because it is optimal, but because it is open. We have spent a century designing efficiency. Maybe it is a time to design for surprise, for slack, for learning, for the unexpected genius hiding inside the messy, the imperfect, the inefficient. This is the dream, the gold standard, the ultimate goal of modern business: customer loyalty. We develop programs to nurture it. We write books to preach it. We hire chief customer officers to chase it. What if this dream is a delusion? What if obsessing over your customer today is the very thing preventing you from the customer of tomorrow? Welcome to the loyalty delusion. Let me take you to 2004. Blockbuster has over 9,000 stores, millions of loyal customers, a bulletproof brand. When Netflix offered to sell for $50 million, Blockbuster laughed. Why? Because their customers were happy. Weekly visits, a candy at checkout, a familiar ritual. But those customers were loyal to a dying format. Blockbuster didn't fail because it lacked customers, but it failed because it listened too much to the wrong ones. We like what we know, and businesses like what they can measure. Customer satisfaction, net promoter code, lifetime value. But here is the trap. The loyalty metrics rewards stasis. They make you optimize for what was, not for what could be. The Harvard research shows that the loyal customers are often the most resistant to change. They like your past, but the future? That is someone else's game. In 2016, Apple made a decision that shocked everyone. They removed the headphone jack. Loyal customers were furious. Tech critics called it arrogant. But Apple was not designing for loyalty, it was designing for momentum. Today, AirPods generate more revenue than Spotify, Twitter, Snapchat, Shopify combined. Apple didn't listen to its loyalist, it listened to the future. Netflix began as a DVD rental service by mail. In 2011, they split the business. Streaming became primary and DVD became Quickster. Customers revolted. Stocks dropped by 77% in 4 months. But Netflix held the course. Today, DVDs are gone and streaming dominates the planet. Netflix didn't apologize betraying its loyal customers. Instead, it thanks them for funding the evolution. Jeff Bezos once said that we are not competitor obsessed, we are customer obsessed. Sound noble. But customer obsession can become a drug. It can keep you addicted to a short-term praise. Harvard Business Review found that companies overly focused on loyal customers underperforms innovation. Why? Because loyalty breeds fear, fear of change, fear of churn, fear of displeasing the base. But base is not always right. When Tesla launched, they didn't go after mass market car buyers. They ignored loyal GM and Ford customers. Instead, they built for tech dreamers, early adopters, people who are not yet exist as customer segment. Tesla created a new category by not listening to the customers, but by leading them. The loyalty would have said, build hybrids. But Tesla said, go electric or go home. Clayton Christensen, the father of disruptive innovation, had a saying that disruption always comes from the edge, which means that it never comes from your loyal customers. They like the current model, the current service, the current price point. But disruption happens when someone builds for the non-consumer, the overlooked, the underserved, the disloyal. Instagram began as photographers' heavens, filters, square crops, artistic expressions. In 2020, they pivoted to videos, reels, influencers, algorithms. Photographers were outraged. They said that Instagram was abandoning its roots, and they were right. But guess what? Instagram's usage skyrocketed. Reels now drive more than 50% of engagement. You don't grow by coddling nostalgia. You grow by surfing momentum. Marketing loves this term, LTV, customers' lifetime value. It sounds smart, it sounds predictive, but LTV is a lagging indicator. It rewards past behavior, not future potential. When you prioritize LTV, you end up feeding your best customers while starving the next ones. That is not a strategy. That is a slow extinction. Netflix dropped DVDs. Apple dropped wires. Instagram dropped photographers. Every bold company must eventually make a choice. Honor loyalty or honor the future. Sometimes those are same, but often they are not. And that is the loyalty delusion. Sam Altman didn't create ChatGPT for current enterprise users. He created for curiosity. And today it is changing how the world works. Airbnb didn't build it for hotel customers. They built it for the hosts. Uber, they didn't target the cab riders. They targeted the strangers with the smartphones. Disruption doesn't come from serving your most loyal customers, but from designing for the customers you haven't met yet. So, what if we stop worshipping loyalty? What if we measured exploration rate, future customer readiness, self cannibalization index, evolution velocity? Because the companies that last are not the most loved, they are the most courageously disloyal. Love is not always saying yes. Sometimes love means saying we are growing and we hope you will grow with us. If you can't, we will say thank you, we will honor you, and we will let you go. Because the most dangerous thing a business can do is cling. Loyalty feels safe, comfortable, familiar, but the future is rarely comfortable. It is disruptive, sometimes painful. So ask yourself, are you building for applause or for what comes next? We love the mythology of Silicon Valley, venture capital, billion-dollar valuations, unicorns born in open offices, and infinite coffee. But what if I tell you that everything we believe about startup success is backwards? That constraint, not the capital, is the real mother of invention. That being broke may be the biggest blessing in disguise. Welcome to the scarcity scam. 2007, San Francisco. Rent is due. Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia are broke, unemployed, and flat broke. They put 3 mattresses on their apartment floor and rent them out to strangers. They call it airbed and breakfast. No funding, no traction, just desperation. 15 years later, Airbnb valued at $90 billion. What changed? Not resources, resourcefulness. In 2022, over $329 billion in venture capital was invested globally, and yet 70% of Venture capital funded startups still fail. In fact, startups with more funding often fails faster than those with less. Why? Because capital creates comfort and comfort kills urgency. Constraints forces choices, capital delays them. James Dyson builds 5,127 prototypes of vacuum before one finally worked. He had no outside funding, no factory, no brand. He had a constraint: make it better with less. Today, Dyson is worth $27 billion. Would he have done faster with funding? Maybe. Would he have done it better? Unlikely. Stripe, the payment company, started with 7 people. They didn't advertise. They didn't raise huge early rounds. They just solved one problem really well, making payments easy for the developers. Today it processes billions of dollars of transactions and is valued at $95 billion. Constraint didn't hinder them, it focused them. A Harvard study of over 3,000 startups found something shocking. The more funding a company raised early on, the less likely it is to reach profitability. Why? Because more capital often leads to overhiring, overbuilding, and overcomplicating. They scale before they understand. They sprint before they crawl. And then they crash. In 1969, NASA landed a man on the moon with less computing power than the modern microwave. They had slide rules, checklists, and duct tapes. But what they didn't have? Endless bandwidth. So they innovated, they simplified, they hacked their way to the stars. Today we have infinite tech, but sometimes fewer tools make us more inventive. Jeff Bezos launched Amazon in a garage. He delivered books in his car. He used doors as desks. His first investors, his parents. Constraint wasn't a barrier, it was a blueprint. Amazon didn't win because of early funding, it won because of early discipline. Basecamp founders refused venture funding. They capped their team at 50 people. They built slow, with intention, with constraint, and they become quietly, wildly profitable. In a world racing to grow, they chose to refine. Constraint gave them clarity, and clarity gave them dominance. When teams are constrained, something magical happens. They prioritize the essentials, say no to distraction, make every dollar count. Slack, for example, was born from a failed game company. No money, no hope, but a desperate internal tool to become a $1 billion business. That is the beauty of the constraints. They turn leftovers into masterpieces. Venture capital loves runway, how long your funding will last. But a better question is, how fast are you learning? Burn rate tells you when you will die. Learn rate tells you how you will evolve. And learning thrives in constraint. Studies show that artists, engineers, and creators are more innovative when given limited tools. Give someone everything and they will freeze. Give them boundaries and they will break through. Twitter's 140 characters, post-it notes, Instagram's square crop, all born from limits, not luxury. In one Stanford class, the students were given $5 and 2 hours. The goal? Make as much money as possible. The best team has made $650, but the winning team has made zero. Instead, they sold their presentation slot to the recruiters, desperate to pitch to the class. Zero capital, infinite creativity. This is the scarcity scam. We believe that more money means more ideas, but the truth is that money often kills them. So, what if we stop asking how much we need to raise and start asking what could we build with less? What would happen if we cut budget in half, shrunk teams, limit time? Constraint is not weakness, it is a design feature. What if success wasn't measured by capital raised, but by ingenuity per dollar? What if we tracked friction-based innovation, constant to creation ratio, burn to learn efficiency? Because funding is fuel, but constraint is fire. Every great company began with a constraint: no time, no money, no team. And that constraint didn't hold them back, it made them dangerous. So the next time you think you need more to begin, remember the greatest companies built when there was nothing left to lose and everything to invent. In the boardrooms of last century, 5 commandments were carved in stone. Outplay your competition. Advantage is everything. Grow faster than anyone else. Scale is king. Optimize to perfection. Efficiency is God. Serve the customer relentlessly. Customer is always right. Raise capital and remove the constraints. Resources means power. But here is the bitter truth. The business world changed, but these rules didn't. Today, your biggest competitor might not yet exist. Growth without depth is collapse in disguise. Optimization kills optionality. Customer obsession leads to dangerous dependency. And too much capital, it kills the hunger to innovate. The S.P.A.R.E model doesn't just tweak the old playbook, it burns it and writes a new one. Each letter is not a tactic, it is a strategic worldview. Constraints are not your enemy, they are your unfair advantage. The best ideas are born when the budget is tight and the pressure is high. Exponential growth looks sexy until it implodes. Sustainable growth is like bonsai, intentional, resilient, rooted. The age of domination is over. In the world of ecosystems, those who cooperate, co-create and adapt survive. Not the kings, but the gardeners. Optimization made us brittle, but flexibility, slack, optionality are what keeps systems alive under shock. Think of a spider web, not Swiss watch. When you are too close to the customer, you miss what is next. The future belongs to businesses with telescopic vision, not the mirror fixations. S.P.A.R.E doesn't mean doing less, it means doing what matters. It means knowing what to remove, what to let go, what to spare, so that innovation, soul, and vision can finally breathe once again. Because the businesses that will define the next century won't be the ones that will repeat history. They will be the ones that dare to break it. This is Badar Arshi. If this shook your thinking, imagine what we can build together. I hope you have enjoyed this session and got inspiration. Subscribe now and let's reshape the future of the business, one bold idea at a time.